Hello, I'm Neil Quigley and welcome to the latest episode of my Blogcast. Hope you're well and you've had a good couple of weeks. Mine have been relatively quiet-ish, I suppose, by my standards, but still with quite a bit going on, of course. I do like going out for a nice meal with my girlfriend. With me being a celiac and having to have a very strict gluten-free diet, it does slightly restrict where we could go, because I will generally only go to places that are either completely gluten-free, of which there are not that many, or to places that are accredited by Celiac UK, therefore I know I can eat there safely. Miller and Carter are on that agreed list. It's a place we both like, but we don't go that often. So a couple of weekends ago, we treated ourselves to a meal there on the Saturday night. Now, it is mainly a steak place. So generally, when I go there, I have a nice steak. The way that it works with your steak, you get a wedge of lettuce, you get some fries and a choice of your sauce. And generally, it's very good. I was looking through the menu and I saw a starter that I really fancied, which was mushroom and cheese based, which is always a winning combination. So I ordered that. And then for the main, I was planning on having a steak when I suddenly saw barbecue ribs and fries that were gluten-free and therefore that I could have. And that was something I'd not had for quite a while, possibly since I was diagnosed as being a celiac. Therefore, despite the fact it's a really good place to have steaks and I kind of wanted a steak, in the end, I went for the barbecue spare ribs. And do you do that thing when you're in a restaurant that you look around to see what food is being delivered to the other tables, either to help you make a choice that you want from the menu or just to see what you have ordered looks like when it turns up? Bizarrely, as it happened, the people on the tables either side of us had ordered barbecue spare ribs. So I got to see what they looked like before mine arrived. And there was two options. There was half a rack or a full rack. Now, I did speak to the waitress and try and get some idea of portion sizes. She took one look at me and did suggest I should have the full rack. And you know what? She was absolutely right. Definitely needed a big portion of the ribs. They turned up with the fries and the world's smallest bit of coleslaw, by the way. I don't know why they bothered serving such a small amount of the stuff. That was my one disappointment with the dish, in that there wasn't enough coleslaw. Anyway, it was covered in this wonderful, tasty, sticky barbecue sauce. If there's a way of making a mess or having an accident or something going wrong in the style of Frank Spencer or Mr. Bean, I am that person those things always happen to. Within about 30 seconds of me trying to eat my ribs, I managed to drop a complete one covered in the gooey sticky sauce onto my jeans, and somehow it missed my napkin and hit the denim, stayed in it straight away. I'd only been eating them about 30 seconds, so it wasn't the ideal start. I did finish them, however, and the other bonus of that Miller and Carter meal, normally when I'm eating out, I get the choice of maybe one or two desserts that are gluten-free, and they're normally chocolate cake or brownie, something along those lines. They had a sticky toffee pudding and ice cream option. I had to have that, even though I wasn't that hungry after my ribs. Still had to order it, and that was delightful. So we had a lovely 3-course meal there. And the good thing about that meal in the end is we both decided that we should go back there fairly soon to have the steak. I have never been a person who has watched a lot of films. My other half does enjoy going to the cinema and watching films. She would do it a lot more, but she generally has a bit of a struggle reaching a compromise of which films I'm actually prepared to go and see. We didn't have much on the other weekend, and she had mentioned this film to me a few weeks previous that she might like to see. It was called Wicked Little Letters, and it stars, among others, Olivia Colman, Jessie Buckley, and Timothy Spall. So it's got an excellent cast list. It's based on a true story that happened in England just after the First World War. I don't like doing this normally before seeing things, but she gave me the synopsis to read and showed me a small bit of the trailer, and it looked all right, so I agreed to go and see it. The caveat being that she had to buy me a cup of tea and some popcorn, which, to be fair, she did honour, and I found some fantastic gluten-free popcorn, which came in quite a small packet, I would say, so much so that we didn't even get to the cinema particularly early, but by the time the film started, I had already eaten all of the popcorn. That said, the large tea that she bought me did last most of the way through the film. The film itself was really good. It was entertaining, funny, amusing, and there was enough of a storyline running through it that you kind of got a bit involved and a bit invested in the characters. There's a nice little kind of twist that they reveal that, annoyingly, Linda had already worked out. But luckily that didn't spoil my enjoyment of it. It's definitely worth watching. It's not a particularly long film. It's called Wicked Little Letters, and it is a nice British comedy. I mean, it's not for the faint-hearted. There is quite a lot of very strong language in there, but the way it's phrased and used within the context of it makes it more funny than just blatantly rude and unnecessary. And that will make sense if you ever get around to seeing the film. While we were at the cinema, on the way to use the facilities, I spotted a poster for a film coming out next month that I do actually want to see and will go to the cinema to watch. They are making, and I don't know how I missed the announcement about this, a new film version of The Fall Guy, which was a big 80s American TV show that I absolutely loved. Starred Lee Majors as Colt Seavers, a stuntman / bounty hunter who you used to see generally at the start of every programme doing a big stunt for a TV show or a film within the television programme of The Fall Guy itself. And then in between stunt work, he'd end up taking a job as a bounty hunter and go out with his team and bring a criminal who was on the run to justice. He'd go and catch them. And while he was out catching them, more times than not, his stunt skills and stunt work would come into play and help him to achieve his goal. Plus, the original TV show did feature Heather Thomas, which, as a teenage lad at the time, was awakening all sorts of things I didn't really quite fully understand back then, I think. Ryan Gosling is going to star in the new version. I hope they do not mess it up. I was a massive fan of the original series of The Dukes of Hazzard, but I haven't managed to bring myself to watch the film version that they made of that several years ago. After seeing a few clips, it didn't seem quite right to me. I didn't think it was in the original spirit of the TV show. I'm hoping The Fall Guy is better. I do actually have a Dukes of Hazzard t-shirt, and I have a Fall Guy t-shirt that I've had for years, which has the emblem and symbol of the stunt agency that Colt Seavers works for on it. I don't think anybody believes I'm a stuntman when I'm wearing it, but that nostalgia of putting it on makes me feel happy. So I'm looking forward to seeing the Fall Guy film. I just hope it's good. After that failed appointment the other month, I did finally manage to get to see a neurologist about my ongoing headaches that I've had for a year now. There was also some confusion over whether I would need a further scan on my head or not. The NHS do such a fantastic job, but they are so busy and under pressure. The doctor who I was seeing was so busy for his surgery, and there was such a backlog, they'd actually booked 2 people for him to see in every slot. So he was working flat out. It did mean, as a result, my appointment overran by about an hour, but that's not his fault. There's nothing he could do about that. There were just too many people booked in for his clinic. The outcome was favourable as well. He took a close look at my MRI scan and decided there was nothing to be concerned about or anything that required further research. He asked me a few questions, did a few tests on me, couldn't find anything serious, so it just looks like these headaches will hopefully pass in time. He could not be totally sure what was causing them, but basically it's nothing serious, nothing for me to worry about. I've just got to manage them the best I can, and hopefully I'll either get them fully under control so they won't be there, or they will just go of their own accord. I hope you had a good Easter bank holiday weekend. Mine was relatively low-key and quiet, I guess. I just went round to see my girlfriend Linda for the weekend. On Good Friday, she cooked us a lovely meal, and we watched the first episode of the latest series of Taskmaster. I am a big fan of that show and have been from the start since the Dave days, which seems a very long time ago now, as it's been on Channel 4 now for quite a few years already. They always get a great combination of people on there, and it's always fascinating seeing how different people attack these tasks in very different ways. I'm already really enjoying this series, and I've only seen the first programme so far. I think Steve Pemberton is going to be absolutely brilliant. Not only is he very, very funny, but also he does seem to have one of those brains and the way of doing things that I think he will be the one who will discover, sometimes in those tasks they put easy ways of doing them. If you look under a table or if you work something out, you'll be able to solve it in half the time, or even sometimes you can score more points by doing nothing than you would by actually attempting to do anything. I predict he will be the person that will suss that out and will do particularly well in any tasks where they leave a bit of a shortcut or a clue in them. That is my big prediction, and I am really looking forward to seeing the rest of the series. On Easter Saturday, Tottenham Hotspur were playing at home, so obviously I had to go and see them. It being, of course, an extended bank holiday weekend, the trains were all screwed. They were doing engineering work on the track I needed to get into London to get to the game. I knew this quite a way in advance, and I had, through speaking to a friend of mine who goes to the games, been told that the club do put on supporters, coaches from various parts of the country, and there happened to be one that stopped very close to my girlfriend's place. So I booked a seat on that a while back. Price-wise, there wasn't much difference between that and the train anyway, and it would have been slightly cheaper than me driving and paying to park around the ground. So I thought, do you know what? I'll give it a try. And fair play, I found the bus stop it was going from. I knew I was in the right place because luckily there were already some fellow Spurs fans there. The big full-size coach turns up right on time and takes us to a coach park about 15 minutes walk from the ground. It just seemed to take a long time to get there on the coach. Obviously, I'm used to going by train, so that seems a bit quicker, and you're kind of more in control of your own destiny because you can make decisions along the way to make things quicker or take slightly different routes to get there. That said, can't fault anything about it. Rest of the fans on the coach were all great, all very friendly, all nice. Got to the game, enjoyed the game. We won 2-1, and it was quite a good game. We could have, I think, with a bit of luck on another day, won that game quite comfortably. And the 3 points at this stage in the season were absolutely crucial. So I enjoyed that. Normally after games, I'd stay an hour or so afterwards and let the crowds disappear a bit so I can get straight on the tube at Seven Sisters to then go and catch my train home. The only other thing about getting the supporters coach is it leaves at 5:45. So I only had about 10 minutes by the time the game had finished and we got back to the bar to have a chat with my friends before I had to shoot off and catch the coach. And predictably, I was one of the last people back on it. I wasn't the last person, and I did get back before the time it was due to leave, so they didn't have to wait for me. I was very well behaved. On the way back, it actually got back quicker than I was expecting. But when you work it out time-wise, it's about the same travel time via coach as it is on the train. But it's a nice backup option, I guess, if there's train trouble in the future. And let's face it, the way the trains are looking, chances are that will be the case at some point. On Easter Sunday, my girlfriend and I did something we've not done for a while, either of us. We were trying to work out what to do. We talked about maybe going to the zoo, but the zoo we were going to, because she's a member had put out an email that morning saying, we're very busy, we're actually having to turn people away. So that kind of put an end to that plan. Then we were thinking of maybe going to Kew Gardens, because believe it or not, I've never been there. Again, that didn't happen for whatever reason. So in the end, we just decided to head out and go to a pub for the afternoon. The plan was, ideally, to find a pub with an open fire and sit by that. Originally, we're going to go to this country pub that her Pilates instructor had suggested, but we went to try and head out there, and the road that it's on was closed, and we couldn't work out a way to get around the diversions and get to the pub. So we gave up on that in the end and just headed back to the town where she lives and parked up in a car park. And we thought, worst case scenario, we'll just do a bit of a pub crawl down the old high street there. As it happens, the first pub we went into was lovely. They were very friendly in there, particularly the bar staff. And we found a table for two right in front of an open fire, which would have been perfect if they had actually set fire to the logs that were in the fireplace. They didn't, so we were sat by the open fire we wanted. It just wasn't on. That said, it was actually quite a warm day inside, at least out of the breeze, so they probably didn't need the fire on. Otherwise, we would have had to remove far too many clothes to have then still been out in public. It worked quite nicely. Linda had a couple of drinks and we just sat there chatting. As it happened, the football also happened to be on in the pub as well. So I sat there having some soft drinks and watching the football. We only planned on going there for about an hour. I think we spent about 4 hours in the pub in the end before we came home, and Linda cooked me a fantastic meal once again, trying out new things she'd found from one of her new recipe books, which she does all the time. I'm just so lucky when it comes to eating fantastic food. Now, despite earlier saying I don't watch many films, I ended up watching my second film in a week on the Easter Sunday evening. A big fan of Elvis Presley, love his music. I like quite a bit about the man and his aura as well. I have seen the Baz Luhrmann film about Elvis 3 times and really enjoyed that. Now, I've read quite a bit about him. I know he was a complicated character. There was lots of things going on in his personal life. The loss of his mum really did affect him at quite an early age. He was also on quite a bit of prescription drugs, mainly because to actually be able to enjoy himself and do things that normal 20-year-olds do, he basically became nocturnal for long periods, in that he'd be out all night either hiring cinemas to watch films in private or even hiring fairgrounds overnight so he and his friends could use them without being bothered. That meant he was generally, a lot of the time, taking pills to keep him awake during the night and then taking sleeping pills to help him sleep during the day. And he was doing that for many years, which did take its toll. I knew he did, probably because of the pills, have a bit of a temper. I also knew he was very spiritual and very into religion and spiritualism in general, plus a big fan of the martial arts. So he's quite a complicated guy, I guess. I was undecided about whether I really wanted to watch this particular film or not. It was based on the book his ex-wife had written called Elvis and Me, and the film is all about Priscilla Presley's side of the story. Obviously, the Baz Luhrmann Elvis film is very much from Elvis's perspective. This film was, of course, from her perspective. It had a lot less budget than Baz Luhrmann's film, as I would imagine you would expect. The guy playing Elvis, to be fair, in some instances looked a little bit more like him than even Austin Butler did from a looks point of view, but mannerisms, the way he performed and voice, Austin Butler wins hands down. The other thing that perturbed me about it slightly was they seemed to find a really tall actor to play Elvis and a really tiny actress to play Priscilla. So the height difference, which in real life was 5'4" Priscilla, 6 foot Elvis, was about 1.5 feet in this film version. It made them look a bit like the Crankies when they were stood together, which was slightly unnerving and off-putting. As it was her side of the story, obviously in certain areas didn't paint Elvis in a particularly good light, shall we say. But I think she was honest. I don't think she was trying to say he was particularly bad or evil. It was just a high-pressured situation, an odd situation they both found themselves in. The way they met does seem still to be a bit of a grey area, even from her side of it in the film. Feels like there's something missing, or it doesn't quite totally make sense, I don't think. But they did spend many years together and, of course, did have a child, Lisa Marie. So I'm kind of glad I watched it, but as an Elvis fan, it was a bit of a difficult watch. But that said, I am also a Priscilla Presley fan. I've got no problem with Priscilla. I think she's great as well. So at least I've seen it. Would I say I enjoyed it? I did not enjoy it. Bits of it were good. It was just a bit uncomfortable to watch, I guess, in certain places. We just rounded off the Easter weekend by having a nice stroll along a canal on Bank Holiday Monday afternoon. I did all right in that I did get a bag of Terry's Gold mini eggs, which were very nice. And I was very impressed with myself. I was given them on the Friday and managed to just about make them last till the Monday. Although I do still have a Freddo Easter egg and a packet of Cadbury's mini eggs to eat because I am clearly still a child. That is almost it. Just a quick reminder, you can hear my radio show Saturday afternoons between 2 and 4 at radio9springs.com. Take care, look after yourselves and each other, please. And I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.